Section 2.5, solving equations by adding and subtracting. The addition property of equality means that I could add the same number to both sides of an equation and not change the equality. Here's what it looks like with the arithmetic version. If I have 8 equals 4 times 2, which means 8 equals 8 when I simplify the right side of the equation, means I can add the same number to both sides and the equality is still true. For example, 8 plus 3, 11 equals 4 times 2, which is 8, plus 3, and 11 equals 11. That's true. We learned that in the previous section. Algebraically means if I have A equal to B, A would be 8 in this representation, and B would be the actual operation of 4 times 2. If those two values are equal, as long as I add the same quantity to both sides, the equation is always true. The left side equals the right side. For the subtraction property of equality, you can subtract the same number from each side of the equation and not change the equality. Here's the arithmetic version. Again, I have 8 equals 4 times 2, which essentially is 8 equals 8, which is true. If I subtract the same quantity from both sides, and here I subtract 3 from both sides, 8 minus 3 is 5, equals 4 times 2, which is 8 minus 3, and I get 5 equals 5. Again, a true statement, true equation. Algebraically, it's similar as it was on this previous slide. If A equals B, and I subtract the same quantity from both sides, the equality does not change. The statement or equation is true. Here's the procedure that we want to use to solve equations by adding and subtracting. Step 1, we want to copy the problem from the book. Step 2, simplify both sides of the equation if needed. Step 3, start on the side of the equation that has the variable. Step 4, determine what is being added or subtracted from the variable. Step 5, if a number is being, and these are the two situations or three situations that we can have. A, if something is added to the variable, then I want to subtract that quantity or that number on both sides of the equation. B, if something is being subtracted from or a negative added to the variable, then I want to add that number to the both sides of the equation. C, show steps A and B. And finally, I want to simplify both sides of the equation. Of course, we're going to look at examples of all of this. Now, what I want you to do is remember, this is important, both sides of the equation means the left side of the equal sign and the right side of the equal sign. Don't do the same thing to one side. Do it to the left side, and then I jump over the equal sign and do the same thing to the right side, whether it's addition or subtraction. Let's look at some examples. Here I want to solve each equation. Here I have k plus 4 equals 9. So what I want to do is copy the problem, simplify the left and right side, which it is. I can't combine these terms because they're not like. Now I want to take a look. What is happening to my variable? Remember, I want to start on the variable side. So this is left side is the variable side. What's happening to my variable? 4 is being added to it. So what I want to do is do the opposite. I want to subtract that number from both sides. And I do want you to show this. I know you could use your head and determine what k is, but show this step. So as the problems get more difficult, we're going to do the same procedure over and over and over, no matter how difficult the problem gets. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. When that occurs, 4 minus 4, I get 0. K plus 0 leaves me with k. I bring down my equal sign. I did the same thing to the right side. 9 minus 4 is going to give me 5. If k is 5, that makes this a true statement. Next, a negative 15 equals p minus 21. Remember, I want to copy the problem. Next, I want to simplify. It's already simplified. Now I want to start on the variable side. That is on the right side of the equation this time. What is happening to my variable? A number is being subtracted from my variable. It's being subtracted from it, therefore I want to add that number to both sides. When I do that, I get p minus 21 plus 21. That leaves me A negative 21 plus 21, which is 0. P plus 0 is P. Over here, a negative 15 plus 21. Different sign, subtract, use the sign of the larger. 21 minus 15 is 6. 21 is larger, therefore it's positive. P equals 6, or 6 equals P. Again, making that a true statement. Solve each equation. Here I have W plus a negative 5 equals 12. I want to start on the variable side, which is on the left side. It's simplified on both sides. What's happening to my variable? I understand something is being added to it, but that something added to it is negative. Therefore, since this is negative, I want to add 5 to both sides. Because when I do that, first of all, that was in our rules, but also when I do that, a negative 5 plus 5 is 0, and W plus 0 is just W. And on the right side, 12 plus 5 is 17. That makes that a true statement. As a matter of fact, I could take that value, substitute it back in, 17 plus a negative 5. Different sign, subtract, use the sign of the larger, I get 12. Let's look at another example. On the right side of the equation is where I want to start. I'm going to copy the problem, look to see if I can simplify, and since my variable is on the right, I'm going to start on the right side. I can't simplify, so let's proceed. What's happening to my variable? I'm adding here, but what's being added is a negative number. Since that's negative, I want to do the opposite of that operation. Here, since it's negative, I want to add 21 to both sides. Bring down the equal sign. On the right side, P plus a negative 21 plus 21. That gives me just P. On the left-hand side, different signs, subtract, and use the sign of the larger number. So 40 minus 21 is going to give me 19. And since 40 is bigger than 21, it's negative. And if I substitute it back in, a negative 19 plus a negative 21 will give me a negative 40, making that a true statement. Let's continue. Solve each equation. First, n minus 12 equals a negative 17 equals a negative 4 minus a negative 15. What I want to do is copy the problem. Step 2, simplify. I bring down my n. Combine like terms. Negative 12 minus 17, which is a negative 12 plus a negative 17. Same sign, combine, use the sign. Gives me a negative 29. Equals a negative 45. Double negative turns to a plus. If you can do that in your head, that's great. You could write that here. I'm going to show the step to help out. That gives me n minus 29 equals a negative 45 plus 15, different sign, subtract, use the sign of the larger, negative 30. Now I start on the side with my variable. I've simplified. I'm starting on the side with the variable. What's happening to my variable is I'm subtracting 29. Therefore, I'm going to do the opposite, or another way to say that is the inverse operation, and add 29. N minus 29 plus 29. 29s will drop out, giving me 0. N plus or minus 0 is just n. Equals a negative 30 plus 29, different sign, subtract, use the sign of the larger, negative 1. On this example, again, I'm going to copy the problem, simplify the left and right side. 12 minus 30, which is 12 plus a negative 30, so different sign, subtract, use the sign of the larger. I get a negative 18. Equals, and notice here, I want to simplify, but I don't want to use this plus sign. I want to say a negative 16 and jump over the plus sign, minus 4. A negative 16 minus 4, which is essentially a negative 16 plus a negative 4. Now, you don't have to show that, but we just have to recognize that. A negative 16 plus a negative 4 is going to give me a negative 20 plus m. Same sign, combine, use the sign. Now I go to the variable side, which is the right side of my equation. I know that's a plus sign, but it's adding a negative 20. The inverse of a negative is a positive. A positive 20 on both sides. equals, on the right side, the 20s will cancel, leaving with M. On the right side, different sign subtract, use the sign of the larger, positive 2. Here's another example. Your favorite football team scored 7 points in this week's game. That is 38 points less than they scored in their previous game. How many points did they score in their previous game? I like to ask questions when I take a look at word problems. For example, one of the questions is what am I talking about? And in this case, I'm talking about this week's game and the previous week. And then I like to ask, well, which do I know least about? Well, I know this week they scored 7 points. But last week, the previous game, I don't know what their total score was. That's a question mark. And anytime I don't know what something is inside of a word problem, I'm going to let that be a variable. And it could be any letter you want. Here I'm going to pick P because we're talking about points, but it could be X, Y, Z, it doesn't matter. So now what we want to do is set up an equation. I know that this week they scored 7. And the previous week they scored, now it does give us some information. The previous week, the score was 38 points less than they scored previously. So if I use this statement, the previous game is represented by P. And I know that 38 points less than they scored in their previous week, P. So if I use that, that's going to be less than. With the than, it tells me to flip it, and 38 goes to the end. And the previous game points have to go first. So that would be P less minus 38, and that would equal the number of points we scored this week, which is 7. Now what I can do is solve this problem. It goes back to our rules. Simplify the left and right. It already is. Now we work on the side with the variable, which is on the left side. What's happening to my variable? It's subtracting 38 from it. Therefore, I'm going to do the inverse, which is add 38 to both sides. And that means that P will equal 45 points. And that tells me in the previous week, my team scored 45 points. And this week, they scored 38 less than that, which gave them a total of 7. Next, you bought a car for $8,000. This is $2,000 more than what your friend paid for his car. How much did he pay for his car? So again, what am I talking about in this situation? I'm talking about the price I paid for my car, the dollar amount for my car, and the dollar amount for my friend's car. So what do I know least about here? Which one do I know least? You bought a car for $8,000. Well, my car I know cost $8,000. And what I don't know is this is $2,000 more than what your friend paid for his car. I don't know what he paid. So I'm going to put down here D for dollars. It could be any letter. But that's what I'm trying to find out. I want to know the dollar amount that my friend paid for his car. Now let's go back up to the problem. This is $2,000 more than what your friend paid for his car. So that's the price of your car, is $2,000 more than what your friend paid for his car. Again, more than, we can flip the order. The price he paid for his car, D, plus $2,000. Now all I have to do is simplify the equation, which it is. Start on the variable side, which is on the right side. Something's being added to the variable. Subtract it. That's inverse operation. Subtract it. And that gives me $6,000, which is the price of my friend's car. Last couple examples. Solve the equation given by the sentence. T minus a negative 8 equals 12. T minus a negative 8 equals 12. Let's simplify. That's T double negative goes to plus 8 equals 12. The variables in the left side, I want to use the inverse of what's going on. Something's being added, so the inverse of that would be to subtract. T would then equal 12 minus 8, which is 4. Number 2, negative 5 plus z equals a negative 3. Negative 5 plus z equals a negative 3. Simplify, which it is. Start on the variable side over here. What's happening? Well, it looks like an addition, but it's adding a negative 5. The inverse of a negative, or opposite, would be a positive 5. So I want to add 5 to both sides. Negative 5 plus 5 is 0, leaving me with z equals a negative 3 plus 5. Different sign, subtract, use the sign of the larger, and z equals 2.